Okay, welcome to my Wooligans DIY slipper project. And today we are going to assemble a pair of these slippers using the blanket stitch. Now you can use any stitch you want, but for this exercise I'm going to show you what the blanket stitch is, and it essentially is this, where it sort of holds down the upper to the outsole. In your kit, you will find a plastic needle and some hand sew thread. This is a wax thread, and what is really important about this type of thread is that it has a little bit of grip to it, so when you're stitching, it kind of locks it in place. It makes it easier to sew. But the other part is you need to keep your thread and sort of the tail of it on the front side of your work so it doesn't get caught up, and I'll explain as I go along. So the first thing you want to do is to measure out your thread, and for each slipper you want about 12 lengths. I have found that is a good amount of thread, so you don't have to tie it off and start a new one. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There you go. Let's set that aside. And you thread your needle. And you're going to have a considerable amount of thread on this as you begin. And it is, or could be, a little bit challenging until you get used to it. But as you start working around the slipper, it'll become a lot more manageable. And one of the things that you will notice is that you have a left foot and a right foot in your package. Also, the slipper upper, which is the part that sits on top of your foot, is also marked with a left foot and a right foot. And we're going to start with the right foot today. So we'll set the left foot over here, along with the left upper. And the outsoles right here are marked right here with a dot and a sticker that tells you where to begin. And what you're going to do is line up the first hole on the inside of the slipper, which is also called the medial side, and it'll line up right there. So you'll take your needle and you'll line up the holes, and let's see, start with this one. There you go. And pull it through. What you also want to do is, I'm going to take this sticker off, I don't need it anymore. You'll need to leave about, I don't know, maybe like 3 inches or so at the end, and that'll help us tie it off when we're finished. Okay, so we go just like this. These kits should take you about an hour or two, depending again on what type of stitch you use and your skill level. So let's keep our hand sew thread out in front of our work, and we're going to go up through the first hole. We're going to go down through the second. Okay, and keep your thread in sort of front of you so it doesn't get tangled up. Okay, and you'll see this little stitch here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to come back up with your needle, and you're going to go right underneath this stitch and pull it through. And this is going to create our blanket stitch. And again, as I said, I really like this one because it holds your work right in place. It almost locks it in, but there are several other types like the X stitch or a whip stitch, and I'll show you links to those later on. And now you can see the first blanket stitch we go under, and then we go through the third hole, excuse me, and then through our work. There we go. We're going to come back up, and we're going to go underneath towards us inside. We're going to make that blanket stitch towards the inside of the slipper. We're not going to go outside. We're going to go inside. Give it a good little snug tug. Not too snug, but just enough to give it a little tension. And this is what's nice about this wax thread, is it really kind of locks it in place. I love it. And it comes in so many different colors. Here we go. All right. And once you get going, it's actually a nice little project. And who doesn't love a nice cozy pair of slippers anyway? There we go. See how we're going. And you know, one of the other things you need to make sure you are mindful of is not to miss a hole on these. Go through this one. Here we go. And I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna kind of carry on a little bit, and I'm going to show you as we get towards the toe how this starts to take. As you can see, the upper starts to look like it's not going to work. It looks kind of wonky here, but you got to trust the process here. Trust me that when you start working around, it'll start to become a 3D looking more like a slipper shape. So I wanted to illustrate that process in case anybody started to worry that it wasn't going to look right. It is. Just trust it, and as you start working the stitches around into place, it'll start to take shape. There we go. I always find these types of projects to be so relaxing, at least for me. And what's really nice about the Wooligans slipper project is that all of the stitch holes are pre-punched in the exact right place for the perfect stitch. I just think it looks so nice. Look at how that's coming out. Isn't it pretty? It just looks so cozy. Now you can see I've started to come around the toe, and it's starting to take shape. You may need to sort of adjust how you hold it, make it easier to stitch, but there we go. Sometimes I like to hold it with my fingers like that. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. It's really important that you do not skip a hole, otherwise you'll mess up the spacing and the finish at the end. So just pay attention. You don't want to have to undo it. And just start pressing the upper into shape, you know, along the edge, and it'll kind of come together, and it starts to become a lot more dimensional. It's really nice how all of these holes are lined up. It makes it so easy to find your stitch. And I just use my fingernail to kind of help keep the stitches a little evenly spaced. No big deal. we're coming around the edge, the end of the upper, and we're going to continue on right around the edge, and we're going to end up right here. You know, it's a little surprising how that kind of came together. But you got to trust the process. What do you think? I think it looks pretty nice. Coming around to our beginning. Almost done. Sometimes that sneaky little thread comes off the needle. Just gotta kind of work with it a little bit. Ooh. Okay, and I like to just tug on where we started just a little bit, just to help. And what we're gonna do is, I don't have a lot of thread left, so it's pretty tight. I'm gonna go down through. If you're finding that you just don't have a lot of extra thread, I start my needle and then put the thread through. There we go. And to tie it off, I'm going to take the thread that we started with, which happens to be a little bit longer. I'm going to thread it through the needle and put it through the stitch. You see how they're both out at one hole right now? I'm going to take this and stick it back through the hole behind it. Whoop. There we go. Just to kind of strengthen that stitch a little bit. And down. Give it a little tug, give both of them a little tug, and it locks it in place right there. And one last, you can see that I have to bring and finish the blanket stitch. Here we go. Whoop. Oh, tight. I know it's a little bit of handwork to finish these off, but there we go. Down through that hole one more time, and you'll see. And there it is. And then completed our blanket stitch. We have our tail sticking out here, and I just tie a simple knot, nice and tight. Two of them, just like this. And because this is nice and thick, the outsole, I just take take the threads and just sort of poke it through one of the holes, either in the front or the back, like that. And I'll show you how I trim it, just like this. Just give it a little tug, and then just take your scissors, give it a little trim. And there is a Wooligan slipper. I hope you like it.